once I tasted that delicious wildflower honey, yeah, I think I was pretty well hooked.
Honeyville was formed in Monrovia, California in 1918, and the Mayer family had built this restaurant and honey store, and anyway, 1918 is when I think one of the ladies actually named it Honeyville. They produce, I'm sure, a lot of orange honey, a lot of citrus fruit honey, things like that. The family ran it with Joe, one of the sons, being key as part of the operation. By the early 1950s, for whatever reason, he moved his family and the whole business to Durango, Colorado. The original store was actually the living room in his house. He packed honey out of the basement. He had about 400 or 500 colonies of bees that were scattered all over the Plata County and around Montezuma County. And they ran that up until the 1980s when we bought them out. My father was the son of one of the lady hoods, and she had married an Irishman named Daniel Culhane. And anyway, they had 4 kids, one of which was my father. And when he was about 12 years old, as the story goes, that he got very interested in bees and started trying to keep them. And originally he whittled some bee equipment out of rough cut lumber and put it together, and by 1925 he was selling honey in downtown Durango at some of the little grocery stores that were there in the area. He was one of the major beekeepers here in the southwest part of the state, and he'd bought out several fairly sizable bee operations. And that same date in 1939, he probably was one of the biggest beekeepers in the southwest part of the state. When the Mayers moved here in 1953, my dad and several of the other beekeepers here welcomed, and there was no problems at all. And my dad and Joe became very good friends.
When Honeyville went up for sale, my reaction was, no way. But we knew that if they offered it to anyone else, they were kind enough to offer us first, and they cared about the future of the business. So we knew that we had to take that leap.
We were very surprised when Honeyville went up for sale. That we had no idea of the internal goings-on or was there, but it just took us by surprise. We probably would have had some other competition that probably would have put us out of business also.
You gotta have your own niche. You can go to all the shows and read all the books and look at everything you want that other people do, but it's gotta have your own twist on it. And so our spin was honey, and good honey in everything. Everything we make here has honey in it. Might not be a lot, but it's in there.
First of all, we'd never run a retail business, but it didn't take very long for us to realize that we could do a retail business and probably do it pretty well. We did a lot of product changes. We changed the product line around quite a bit, and I think that's one of the key things that we did, was to change that just a little bit. But we've always maintained the quality and just tried to keep everything as a top quality product.
Well, as you can see behind me, we have the equipment to make a very quality product. As a production manager, I make sure that I have a very clean production room, and I put out a very quality product with everything I do. The recipes that we have for our SKUs that we sell haven't changed in a very long time. So we've perfected what we need to do and what a good result would be with the products and the production and the equipment that I use.
We rely on tourism. There's just no other way around it. Honeyville has been featured several times during the course of its life as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, retail honey store in the United States. And there's even a beekeeping book called ABC XYZ of Beekeeping, dating back to 1935, that shows a picture of the Honeyville business. And Honeyville even today is considered one of the very top retail honey and mail order places.
So I think I've been able to really help with efficiency and making sure things are flowing smoothly, and as we've grown, there's a bigger demand for production and jars and computers and IT and all that, and that's kind of more my neighborhood. So I've really been able to help on that, adding pumps, and we put in a state-of-the-art heat exchanger system, which actually processes the honey the absolutely minimal to try and make it taste the best that we can, coming straight from the hive, going into the jar. Things like that I think that's where I've added the most of my knowledge and input.
I don't see any reason why it's not going to continue to grow, as long as you keep up the mission statement, which would be provide them with the best tasting honey there is, and just be honest and give them good service, good everything.
It definitely had a huge impact on the business. The retail aspect of things was absolutely obliterated in the month of June, which would be pretty much accurate, because it relies a lot on tourism, and then people actually be able to just physically visit our store, which the highway was closed for nearly a third of June, so that made that extremely difficult. That was a very difficult time, and just kind of hunker down and make your way through it.
Well, the fire was awful. As far as production's concerned, when you have a fire as close as it was, it shuts you down.
So we were out of business most of the month of June. And of course the tourism dropped way off because of all the smoke in the valley and that, and it definitely hurt us.
I would say it's even harder catching up from that than it is during the busy season. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then not only with that fire, but then the floods came after that.
And then as soon as we made it through that, then we had the floods.
And the flood was actually more scary than the fire. I thought at one time we had lost the building, that if it would have rained for another 10 or 15 minutes the way that it rained on July 24th, we would have lost the building. Yeah, it was just that bad.
Okay, well, most of that we've just kind of buried because you have to move forward, and it was a pretty big disaster or tragedy, but everybody had to go through it. But I think I came out of the fire and the flood mostly just very impressed with the community support.
Yeah, I think sometimes that stuff, it just kind of has to happen when it happens. You kind of get forced into that box, or however you want to say it.
It was quite a fiery occasion that kind of put the damper on some of the activities we had planned, but to think that we've been around for 100 years, or the business has, and to think that we've sold honey in Durango continuously since 1925 is pretty amazing. I would just love for them to be able to see what we've done with the business, that I think they'd both be excited about it. Like for my dad, the way to see how his grandchild Kevin has turned out, and for Joe, just the business and how big it's gotten and all that. And both of them were doing things just as important back when they started it as we are now to keep it going. They had their ups and downs, just like we've had ours, and they persevered, and I guess so have we.